What's up? My name is Fabish, and welcome back to my podcast. It's been 1 year since the last time I actually recorded a podcast episode, and a lot has happened within that year. Good God, it's been long, and it's been like good, but also there's a lot that happened that I've the person who I was like 1 year ago and the person who I am right now is so different. I've learned a lot of things. I think in the last 1 year, I've learned so much about people and not the world, but more about people than I've ever done ever. And it's hard because like you assume that every year there's something you're learning and there's something that is new that you can kind of take and grow yourself with. But I've never had that with people though. And I know you're wondering what's wrong with his hair. Yeah, I don't know either. So my hair has done this thing where if I cut right here, so you can see it's growing on one side, right? So if I cut right here, it's gonna grow on one side. If I cut one side, it's gonna grow on the other. So now, like, it's kind of a cool style. I've never had this before. So if you're a hair like specialist and you know what's going on, please let me know. But yeah, last year almost broke me. And the last several months almost broke me in so many ways, and like the hardest one was like losing people or losing a person, and just thinking through like that growth. We don't realize how bad the world has become, but we also don't realize how good of an opportunity it is to put actual good out there, because we care so much about ourselves, we care so much about what's going on within us that we sometimes forget that there's people outside our walls that actually need help. There's people outside our walls that just need to be talked with, or talked to, or to be listened to. And sometimes it takes a lot of effort to actually like get out of your own head and look around. But like in the last year, I've had a mix of different things. Like I've had a mix of like religion, um, relationships, religion, and just like the idea of parents and the idea of like friendship and the idea of like church and work, all kind of just like you know swirled into this ball. And I guess it's the first time I've actually experienced it from the front line. And the hardest thing about all of it is that in as much as like it's 5 years past COVID, the effects of COVID are still there. And we never look at that part of life. Like we kind of just moved on very fast. Crazy things have happened. Crazy things have happened in Kenya. Crazy things have happened, around the world. And now we live in a place where every day it's okay to expect bad news. And so for me, it just became this thing where last year, as I started, let me kind of recap how last year started. Like the start of last year was fun. There was a lot that was going on, and I was very hopeful. And as time went by, like I just looked around, and I don't know if it's me, but I felt like everything was burning. Everything was burning. Um, and I mean that like globally. Like there was the Gaza Israel thingy that was going on, and then there was like the American election, and there was the issues here in Kenya, and it just all like culminated into this thing where our life was kind of just being swallowed. And this was 2024. And then like I kind of lost a friend who kind of a distant friend, but friend from school, and that was you know not great. And like I had to it did shake me because it made me realize that wow, the invincibility aspect of life kind of just fades off. I was very confused because this person is definitely one of the people who I thought was going to make it in life. And when they didn't and they just passed away, it did knock that like idea of, oh yeah, you can always make it, and you're always gonna be around for so long. Just knock it out. So just continue with life. Didn't work. But even at work, it's like I was learning new, like the work environment in a way that I never did. And something happens to you when you start being anxious, right? From a specific thing can happen, like one small thing can happen that can be very traumatic. And then as you go through life, that the effects of that like thing happening will translate into other areas of your life. So, like for example, because I lost a friend, it did change my perspective on work and like what work is and what you're doing and how you should like communicate around work and friendship. And so then it kind of knocks you down a little bit. Then I did meet people, throughout like last year that changed my perspective on goodness and evil and life, because you think of evil or goodness as very straight up. Like you think of them as you see someone and you think of good as someone handing, food to the poor. That's good. And you think of evil and you see someone striking down someone else. That's bad. But it's not really like that in reality. And most of the time, it's people and it's people you trust that sometimes can create these feelings of, my goodness, these people are really terrible or these people are really great. And in the last year, like wow, look at me doing that. You know who does that? In the last year, I had a very sharp sense of like how much. Okay, I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and they said, it's interesting because most people come into your life and on average they only spend like a year in your life. That's on average. So think about like how much you know people. Like if you're at work, somebody might come in and you'll know them. There's a chance within a year you might be gone or they might be gone. You meet friends, they're friends you'll know for maybe like 2 months, 3 months, and that's it. There's not much past that. Then you might meet like your neighbor, and maybe in 1 year they'll be gone. So the average time somebody actually like stays in your life is 1 year. The difference is the effects they leave behind can be like for a lifetime. It can change how you see things for a lifetime. And I got to experience this. I got to meet people within those time frames where the effects of what my interaction was with these people like will forever like register in my mind and will forever dictate how I react to meeting new people. And some of them are good, some of them are not good. But it's how hidden it is. Like I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm pointing fingers at anyone, but it's you might meet people and they might look lovely, they might look amazing, they might look great, right? And you think to yourself, yeah, these people are amazing. And they themselves don't even understand how much like they mean to you, or they don't understand how much their actions matter. So the gravity of what they do doesn't register to them. So, let's say, for example, you meet a friend, and this friend talks a lot, right? And they tend to be very like opinionated, but also they tend to make friends quick. The problem is for them to make friends, they have a very good track record of making friends, not keeping them, making them. The problem is for them to make friends, for you to make friends, you both have to have something in common, right? And the biggest one is trust. So if you trust someone, there's a big chance you're going to open up to them. Let's say you meet someone who's good at making friends, but for them to get to earn the trust of that part of a new person, they're gonna have to give some information or like give out some detail that is not normal or is not easy to come by. And maybe that's like details about another friend or something someone did or a secret, that kind of buys them or exchanges trust with that information. That's how it works. Like if you walk up to someone and you're like, hey man, like, do you trust me? Like, no. Okay, I'm gonna tell you something, and you cannot tell anyone. And they'll be like, okay, what's up? And then you go, last night I saw this person steal a car. And they know that person, you know that person. But immediately you've established a sense of trust because you've exchanged information for their trust. Like they will be like, really? And you're like, please do not tell anyone. Now, for that trust to be kept, it means they like you kind of sign like an agreement, pretty much. Like you cannot tell anyone, right? And they say, fine, I won't tell anyone. Those are the terms of the agreement. But sometimes people don't tend to keep these terms, and they will go to someone else and say, hey, this person told me that they saw you steal the car. And so what happens is you have lost trust. They have kind of earned trust with the other person if that person doesn't have values, because that person will be like, wow, thanks for telling me. I now trust that you can actually be honest with me. The problem is that person doesn't realize that way. If you can break some, like, if you can break someone else's trust, that means you can also do it to me. It's the same thing. And so it's an exchange, right? But sometimes you meet people who are good at making friends, but they trade information or sensitive things, or some kind of like, they might use situations you're in, or they might use things that you don't really want to be out there. I'm making it sound really bad, but they might use you as a token to earn someone else's trust and make friends. And so I met a couple of these people like last year, and like this, they're not like it's not like they were like so integral, but I did get to watch somebody make friends, then use information that I might have given them to earn trust with someone else, or be very quick to judge and give opinions on matters that actually had more gravity than they thought or they knew, right? So, for instance, let's say I meet a friend called Peter, and Peter tells me that he loves to um, hunt like turkeys, right? And Peter works in an environmental protection organization, but he likes to hunt turkeys. His work life and his like out life, outie. If you've watched Severance, you know what I mean. His work life is very different from his outside life, and so his outie hunts turkeys. The INI, I think, um, works in an environmental protection organization. And so I get to know Peter, and one day we go on a turkey hunt, and then Peter takes me along with him to dinner or like some kind of like thing at work, right? And then I meet people who I want to be friends with, and I go, oh wow, yeah, I'm friends with Peter. By the way, the other day I was out hunting turkeys with Peter, and like Peter is standing there and is like, yo, come on, like, you don't you realize what you've just done? But because I just want to make conversation, I don't realize the gravity of the situation. I don't realize what I'm doing. I just think I'm making people laugh. I just think I'm making friends. And so there's a lot of people like that, like in the world, who just walk around unaware of how much effect they create, you know, and how much, maybe negative, maybe positive, who knows? Because that can also be switched to the point of like, if Peter needed help and he couldn't say it, and then this person kind of went and yapped about it, it could help Peter. But like in this situation, it doesn't help. And so I did meet these people, right? And I met people like this. I met people who they looked one way to the public, they acted one way out of the public. And at work, it was the same way. And it did take me back, because it creates fear. It creates fear in you, because you realize that like no one's coming to save you. That mentality. At least that's how I felt then. And you now fear like conversation. You fear having these kinds of like interactions, because again, I live in a big city. Nairobi is huge, and sometimes like people are very superficial because it's such a fast-paced place, and people just, it's almost like it's an exchange program, basically. Like people from different areas come to this place, and like they kind of exchange their values, which maybe are not real, but these values are all geared towards one main thing, which is success. So like, like, I will trample or tramp over you, or walk over you, trample, I don't know what that word is, over you, to get to where I need to go, regardless of whether I care for you or not. And so that's such a terrible way to see it. But if you actually break it down to that, because when you're anxious, you see all these things. You see from a very different perspective. And so anyway, I experienced this. I experienced like a life where there was way more impossible than possible. There was way more like last year. Like I just felt like everything was not geared towards giving you hope. It was geared towards crushing all the hope you had. And so as I went through the year, the one thing that like became very apparent was that it was hard to just go back in society and like you know be like, yeah, it's great. So I kind of put podcasting aside because I realized that I wasn't really like podcasting for anyone. I wasn't doing it for myself. I was just doing it, and there was a lot of podcasts coming around, and none of them really like ever meant anything to me. Like I was talking about like my story and whatever, but like I never really like enjoyed what I was doing then. So I kind of took a break and I went and started helping people produce podcasts, which I now do. So if you want me to help you produce podcasts, please reach out to me. I know everything about it because I've been doing it for 5 years, not like 2 years like everyone else. I've been doing it way before podcasting was cool. But yeah, so it wasn't a great like experience last year. But that now take all that. I know it's so like vague because I can't go into details, but it's very vague. Um, and it sounds very like wow, someone did something wrong. No, it's just all like how I'm trying to explain it from like a point of like anxiety and how that like can create this person who walks around life with heightened emotions and heightened like ability to read and assume things because when you're anxious or you have like trauma, let's say you had like you maybe met some friends and they were not very honest and they did say things about you that were not true, right? The next time you are in a public place or you are among like friends, you're not going to be very quick to open up. That's just not like how it works. And so then you just assume that everybody in that place cannot be trusted. I lost a lot of trust with people, especially, and this is going to sound so bad, I lost a lot of trust with the people who have a strong inclination to talk about Christianity and religion because I feel like in that moment, like there was a lot of like, how do I put this? There was a lot of questions about like Christianity and like in my circle, Christianity and going to church and what all that means. But because I had this heightened like experience, I felt like it was more like, hey, it's a lifestyle and not like a purpose. You know what I mean? Like it's a lifestyle in the sense that my life is designed around having friends, being very social, looking a certain type of way, going to church, and doing all these things. But I don't really serve a purpose towards like following God or reaching God. And I'm not saying I do that, but I'm saying like I started seeing a lot of this. Somehow I just plunged myself into the middle of like these kind of like situations. And it did question everything I knew about the church and Christianity and everything. And I felt the need to like pull back a little bit. And I remember like for some time I didn't go to church because I didn't even know like, oh, what does this church even mean? Because like the idea of church growing up, because I grew up in a very like you know um in a Church of Christ like surrounding, and it was such a like a simple small church, but you could tell people really loved each other. It was connected to the school I went to, so I knew these people. I grew up with them, so I knew the bad ones from the good ones, and I knew the teachers that went with me to church. My family went to that church, and so it was very like it's a small community church. And like, in the big city, it's denominations everywhere, and so the idea of church is like, is it because people just want to show up and like have a community, or is it because people actually want to pursue something greater? And so with that being said, like it did like change my perspective on how people interact with Christianity and all that, because on one hand people will go and post about how great the Lord is, right? And this one I will point out, and if you don't want it, that's fine. If you hate what I'm gonna say, it's fine. And I'm not criticizing people because it does sound like I'm like because the, I know the defense of these people will be, yeah, we're not all perfect anyway. We are all just trying, and like someone told me that you don't go to church to be perfect. You go to church because I don't even remember. It was just all of that stuff. But what I mean is like people will go and post about how great God is and how good the Lord is and all these things. And then like because you know them, right? You look at like the social media, you're like, oh wow, that's great. Wow, I see this person has found like religion. That's amazing. Great. And like, they'll post like Matthew chapter this or like Romans chapter this and chapter 8 verse 18 or I don't even know what Romans chapter 8 verse. I think it says something about like we suffer but in the end it'll be great. I don't know. So anyway, like actually let me just check. I might be wrong. Romans 8 18 says, I consider that our present suffering are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Yes. So let's say I take that, I put in a nice image, which I actually did because I love that. I love that verse. But let's say you take that and you put it on Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp or Reddit or what do you call that? Russian app, Telegram or whatever. Like you post it in your story, and people are like, "Hey man, this is amazing," And then like, you know these people, or you have an idea of who they are. So you see them post this, and then you kind of like wait a few minutes, and then they leave church, and maybe you interact with them, and you're like, hold on, this is the same person that is like online is holding the tabernacle or whatever, like the holy name of the Lord. Like in the Old Testament, they used to have those that it was called the tabernacle, I think. Was it called that? The thing that like the Lord's presence was in it, and it was carried everywhere. Yeah, let me check. Tabernacle. No, that's not it. What's that thing that like they carried? Oh goodness! Wow! Oh man, I'm gonna be in trouble. Oh yeah, here we go. Old Testament. Oh yeah, the Ark of Covenant. Sorry, the Ark of Covenant. I always confuse those things. The tabernacle is the innermost like part of prayer. The Ark of Covenant was the it held it was a religious chest and relic held to be the most sacred object by the Israelites. So it was a wooden chest overlaid with gold with cherubim figures on top. It housed the two stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. Oh, okay. As well as Aaron's rod and a pot of manna. Wow. Okay. Oh wow. Why did they not have Moses' rod though? Oh wait, Aaron's rod is the one that did he give it to Moses? I don't know. I don't remember. Let me look. Aaron's rod. Oh yeah, so Aaron had his own rod, and Moses had his own rod. I don't know whose rod. So Aaron's rod was the one that. I actually forgot about this. So Aaron's rod was the one that was used to turn the water of the Nile to blood. Okay. And then Moses' rod was used to split the Red Sea. Now that one everyone knows. I wonder which one was used to strike the stone twice. The sin that made Moses not go into Canaan. Whose rod? In Kenya we call them stick. Was used to hit the rock twice. Oh, it was Moses' rod. So yeah, he used his own rod to hit the stick. I think God told him. Yeah, he was supposed to just speak to the rock, and he actually like struck it twice, and so or struck it twice, not struck it, struck it twice, And then that's what caused him not to go to Canaan. Yeah, there you go. So wait, what was I even talking about? Um, yeah. So like I was saying, like these people will hold the word of God so highly, right? Within the right like group. And then action wise, there's little to nothing to suggest that they actually are working towards a relationship with God. And I'm not the holder of like what we should do or what we should not do to have a relationship with God. But there are things that generally as Christians we agree that they are like kind of like determinants towards like living like Jesus, right? Like you should be kind, you should love others as you love yourself, love your neighbor as you love yourself. You should love God. You should like be honest. That's huge. Be honest and trustworthy, like the fruits of the Holy Spirit and all those things. So these are things that Jesus actually said, and we if we do them, we can actually be like Christ, right? But it's nowhere did he say, yeah, like post my message on social media, and you shall be like me. You know who did that? The Pharisees. They had those huge things on their head, and they had a lot of like scripture in them, and they would walk around reading scripture. So the Pharisee like version of today is people who are quick to like judge, quick to like tell you how Christianity should be, and quick to tell you all these things, but they don't act in accordance to what Jesus said. And so I felt like in this time, because there was a heightened anxiety and sense of like, kind of like take a distance. I felt like I was watching it from this angle, and it wasn't a healthy angle to watch. So I had to take a step back. And then the thing that kind of like messed up everything the last few months was losing a loved one, and this is not like the friend who died. No, that was like somebody I knew in high school. This was a loved one who I knew like very close. And it did like hit so like hard because there's some people who like it's an instant, like in Kenya it's instant, like people die very instantly, like you don't know that. I mean, they're sick and then boom, they're dead, but this was very gradual, and you could feel like you were losing someone, and that changed how I see everything. It changed how like I see time. It changed how I see how like relationships work. It did change something so huge in how I like interacted with people, because it was so like it was drip drip, like it was so painful, like just losing someone like that. And when I was young, I lost my dad. I was like 13, and I can still remember because he died of like lung problems, and it was very gradual. You could watch the life drain out of him, and like now I can talk about it without like feeling super like sad. It still does bring emotions, but it's not the same. So in this time, I just felt a lot of like emotions, and it brought back emotions that I didn't know that were there. And yeah, like so anyway, long story short, these last few months took me to a place I didn't think I could go. And it wasn't like a dark place. You know what I mean? It wasn't dark. It was just very untrustworthy, and also becoming like more aware of how the world is not fair, in so many ways. And so yeah, it was hard, and even now like I'm still like trying to come back from it. But one thing I will say though is that the flip side of all that is that there's good people in this world, and there's people who the people who like have nothing to offer you at all. They have nothing to gain from you, but they're still kind. Like those people. If you know someone like that, tip your hat to them, because they could very well not care at all, or they could very well like they don't need anything from you. But the fact that they still like like show kindness and are honest and keep friendship and trust, and they keep going. These are good people. But the world now teaches us that we should care about ourselves. I mean, I've just spent the last like 30 minutes just talking about me, and not anyone else, because we are very like, the Western culture has kind of dripped all over Kenya and all over like Africa and the world. And we are very individualistic, not because we choose to, but because that's how everything kind of works. Now, like, I mean, you're not going to go and sit down and talk to your neighbor. Like 10 years ago in Kenya, you could sit down and chat with an older person for a very long time. I have not seen a lot of old people lately, and I don't know why. I know that sounds crazy. Maybe I live in a city, and so there's not a lot of old people here. But I've not seen a good old person. Like 90-year-old, like white hair or gray hair. I think it's white by that time, like white hair. Like for some reason, like I know this guy who I think he's like 80. He has very white hair and it's so nicely like combed, and he has really good skin, and he just looks smart. Even the pace by which he speaks. The words he uses, the weight behind those words. I've seen. You can tell each word is like years of experience. I don't see those people anymore. Like I don't even know the last time I saw somebody who was old and wise. Because there's another trend, funny enough, there's a trend that I think is going to destroy our older generation, which is I tend to see now more older people with TikTok than I ever did before. And that's so funny. Like I whoever gives old people TikTok, shame on you. I mean, it's great for them to be on TikTok, but oh my goodness, like I've seen a lot of like older generation people, like swipe on TikTok, and this is not being ageist. I'm just saying like the difference between them and like a teenager, there's no like it's no like there's no difference, and they have their own content because they like things. Funny enough, like I was actually sitting next to somebody who's a bit older. I think they're in their like 70s or 80s, and all they were listening to was AI stories. I don't know if you've gone TikTok, Instagram lately. If you swipe for a while, you come across videos that are like countries as animals, and like there's the USA is like a big eagle man walking, and then India is like the Bengal tiger, like a tiger, big tiger head walking, and then like Kenya is like the lion walk, and so like those kind of like content. I mean, it's so easy to find that stuff online right now, and then there's like the AI voice that goes, the man woke up to find himself in a ditch, and then the man said, "Wow, what have I done to myself?" And then he woke up and walked away, and he saw a squirrel eating a nut, and he was like, "Wow, I'm gonna sit here and enjoy this view." And then right across, he did not know across something like that. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of like, it's a lot of unnecessary information packed into one thing and then served to these people. And so, like, I mean, they use like AI, like visual stuff, which is kind of nice, like to watch. And then there's like some, you can tell I've been on like Instagram for a while. Because what goes on TikTok comes into Instagram like a few weeks later. Now there's even one where like there's a POV of stuff. Like POV, you wake up on the last day of Pompeii before it blew up, or POV, you wake up the day before Noah's Ark. You wake up as Noah, or POV, like stuff like that, and it's just AI stuff. And then there's like stuff to do with God. But anyway, I sat next to an older person on the bus, and they were listening to TikTok. Now, the funny thing is, their concept of like their surrounding is very different from like teenagers, because they were raised in a very open like society where you could speak your mind and say what you think and not really be like like closed off, because the effects of what you said were not that huge. Right now you can say anything and you'll be cancelled. You can say everything is about what you say. What you say matters, right? So like you're very like, everyone on the bus these days have like headphones on their phone, and like no one really like talks to people. In his time, there was no phones, so you kind of had like speak, and there was music going on, but like you kind of had to engage. So he doesn't, or he didn't have like the awareness to like have headphones, and it would be weird to see like an old man with white hair wearing like a Bluetooth headphone. That would be so weird. Or even like this, like it's gonna destroy their hearing. But what he did though was he had an iPhone, and it's the one that you can tell that whoever like got this iPhone for him, or even if he did, somebody advised him to get the heaviest casing ever. For like, like when iPhone first came out, they had those heavy casings, or like huge, with like a plastic thing on top. And so you like after some time that plastic thing came loose, so you had to like press it hard, and it was just like it looked very like heavy and whatever. So he had one of those. And the way he swiped was like this. Not like this, like you hold a phone like this. No, it was like this. Like he was swiping. But he was on TikTok. Like this 80-year-old man was on TikTok, watching TikTok. And so he's like sitting next to me. Well, yeah, it was like I was sitting here and then someone in the middle and he was on the end. But like he's swiping TikTok and listening to the stuff, and it's so loud. But like it's so fascinating because this is not somebody you'd expect to be watching TikTok. And so like I'm sitting there, I'm fascinated. I'm like, this guy is watching TikTok. Oh my goodness. And then a call comes in. You see him hang up. In the middle of watching TikTok, he hangs up, like he presses the red button and then just keeps on like swiping. And I was like, oh my goodness, wow, the kids of these days, wow, I've not seen that in a while. Like, I know there's old people, but they're now on TikTok, who actually signed them up to TikTok. And then here's how like somebody sat down and taught them. On TikTok, there's the like button, there's the message button, and then there's a favorite button, right? And then I think there's like 3, and then a send. I can't remember very well what the UI looks like, but the favorite button, if you click that, the video that you're currently watching goes into a tab that you can watch later. And so he was liking and favoriting, and I was like, wow, this is cool. This guy knows his stuff, like this guy he's the Gen Z of Gen Zs. And so yeah, like I really wish we could have like more older people. If someone could start like a system where they'll just go out into like the suburbs and like the rural areas and bring a lot of wise people every once in a while into the cities and just let them, like just release them. Now, I know like traffic would be a problem for them maybe. If you could just release them, and the first 30 people they meet, they get to sit down with them and talk to them, the world will be a great place. Because these people are carrying a lot of wisdom, but you don't see them around, like living in the city. When I lived in Kisumu, it's a mix of like city, but also like a lot of like community and old generations in one place. So you could see old people. In Nairobi, I rarely do. Like it's so hard. I don't know the last time I saw somebody in like their 80s, like just like someone's grandpa walk around. You don't see them here. So if you could start a program where you could just go out there and fetch them, just like, release them into the city, like for just a day, you'd hear a lot of like the city quiet down, and then the next day people would be way more like better in how they approach life. But yeah, right now we're being taught how to live by TikTok, so that's what we have. But the funny thing is, the people who should be teaching us are also on TikTok. So yeah, it is. But yeah, that's my return to podcasting. I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this. Like, not how long, sorry. I don't know how frequent I'm going to be posting episodes because I don't even know what to talk about. Like, before I had like things to talk about. Now it's like, yeah, it's hard to know what to talk about when you're like super anxious, and anxiety is like it's one of those things that I don't think ever leaves you. You never like stop being anxious. It just happens, and it goes with you in life, and you can work with it. But sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. And I feel like there's more people just anxious for absolutely no reason, and it's sad, but it's just the truth. So yeah, I'm back. It's been great. And the last time I posted an actual podcast was maybe a year ago. So it's been a year since I actually did podcasting, which in that time also something that I did was set up business, Prime Connect. So yeah, there's a lot that happened. There's a lot of good stuff that happened last year. It's not all bad, but from my perspective, like I felt like last year just compared to the last 3 years before COVID, after COVID, last year was just the one that everything kind of just boiled to the surface, you know, and it is what it is, I guess. You can't do anything about it. So as you go through life, just remember to be kind, be trustworthy. You do not have to post Bible verses to be liked, or you don't have to force like conversations to earn trust and make friendship. Because if it's not genuine, it's not gonna last. And I realized that I wasn't being genuine in most of those conversations because I was doing it from a place of anxiety. And when you're anxious, you tend to feel like people are not like being honest with you, or if you tend to feel like people can sometimes like take advantage of your relationship with them, and so you kind of pull back. But it is what it is, and I hope to see you in the next episode.